Dick Barr.
And welcome back, Lake County. This is Dick Barr, your host of Unlocking Lake County. I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Christin Kaufman. Say hello.
Hello, friends. Happy to be back this week.
And happy to have you back. And then our great friend, Sly Marinca of the Sly Marinca team at Cross Country Mortgage. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
So I got to talk to the engineers here. I got to figure out, every time we do our sound checks, we're like, okay, I'm like, hello there. And then when we go live, it's like, boom, we switch on to the program channel.
We just get so excited.
Shot out of a cannon. I don't think it's us. I think it goes feeds into the meters differently. Anyway, welcome back. This has been an exciting week. Happy to be back here, Lake County, with you. And I got to say, I don't know how everyone else feels. I love the theme song. Like, I always got to hear that main bridge that breaks into the...
It gets stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Before I can start talking.
It does. The rest of the Wednesdays that I'm here, like for the rest of the day, it's going through my head all day.
No, that's good. I think it's catchy.
Definitely. I could use that as like a hold track for when someone calls like my office or something like that.
Absolutely.
It's super catchy. So give me the name of that track.
Listen,
and
my kids are little, so it's either this or the Bluey theme song. So I'll take it.
No Bluey theme song. Actually, it's so I subscribe to a service that I get media, like, so you get different songs that are you own the rights to.
Okay.
So it's not custom, but so I can play that without having to worry about like Facebook shutting us down.
Gotcha.
So otherwise,
It's not you playing the guitar? I'm out of here. Never mind.
Well, I mean, how about this weather?
Beautiful.
Loving it.
Are we summer? Are we full-fledged summer?
I will not put my snowblower away yet.
You're so funny. I put everything away. Listen, I've said this before, and I mean it with my whole chest. When I decide that I am done with winter, I am done with winter no matter what is going on outside. My coat is away. I am not dealing with winter. I am done. It's April. You do not exist. And then you blink because winter does continue to come back, whether or not I recognize it or not. And then it's no longer spring anymore. It's summer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, super. Yeah, I remember seeing you in like February, no coat.
I know. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this.
It's like my daughters, they go to the bus and they got T-shirts in the middle of February. Like, what are you doing?
This winter was kind of strange. I mean, it really wasn't that cold. Like on most days this winter, I feel like we had a couple of those like horrible polar vortexes, which is just like a normal thing that we deal with every year now.
Right.
And other than that, it was all pretty tolerable.
Very mild, very little snowfall. I only did get to use my snowblower a few times. I'm a big snowmobiler, and I go up north into the UP a couple times a winter, and I got to go once this year before my surgery, and that was it.
Yeah, I didn't used to love snow before having kids, and now that I've got littles, I'm always like, come on, let's get some snow. I want to go make a snowman. I want to go sledding. Let's do this. And it's never enough these days, I feel like.
No, you said how many times you go snowblowing? Snowmobiling, I meant?
Usually I try to get up into the UP a few times a winter. This year I got to go once. We had a couple trips planned, and they had no snow up there. I mean, I'm talking zero, I mean.
All the way up there?
All the way in the UP, yeah.
Really?
So it was a really, really bad winter. I feel bad for a lot of the businesses up there and the hotels and restaurants and things like that. They were...
But now we've got springtime.
Yes.
It's gorgeous out.
We'll hope
my
for better
plants
snow
are
next
starting
year.
to grow outside, and my husband's had to mow the lawn a handful of times already.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll take it.
Okay, so we're going to get into my favorite part of the show.
Of course it is.
In just a minute. Actually, it's the hardest part of the show because I got to talk so fast and try to get all this information out before, before the before I ran out of time.
If I'm being honest with you, it's actually one of my favorite parts of the show. And not because it means that I don't have to talk for a couple of minutes. I love talking. But I actually love watching you just start diving into like the analytics of the market. You get so like interested, and it's really cool to watch.
Well, cool. I appreciate that. Okay, so without further ado.
Stay on top of the market with Dick Barr's Market Minute.
Dick Barr's Market Minute.
Self-indulgence at its core. Welcome back to the Market Minute, and we're going to talk about all in Northwest Lake County, what's selling, what's not selling, where your prices are, and where they're not. We're going to say what how long properties are sitting on the market, how quick they're selling, how many actives, and we compare that with the history of all the data. We're going to break it down by first region, and then we break it down to all the individual components that make up the region, including Antioch, Volo, Fox Lake, Ingleside, Grays Lake, Gage Lake, Haynesville, Third Lake, Wildwood, Gurney, Wadsworth, Old Mill Creek, Lindenhurst, Lake Villa, and the Round Lake area. I said all those cities, but I couldn't break down the Round Lakes. Round Lake Beach, Round Lake Heights, Round Lake Park, and Round Lake. The 4 rounds. Anyway, so this week we have 125 active homes on the market. A slight uptick from last week. New listings this week, we have 34, which is down from last week where there were 49. Under contract in the past 7 days, we had 56. Big jump from last week where we had 46. 173 properties have gone under contract in the past 30 days, and that's a huge increase from last month where there was only 117. Days on market average for the region, 15 days. Imagine that. With only a 0.6 month supply of inventory. Lowest price, $30,000. Highest price, $950,000. Just shy of $1 million. And the highest active property on the market, a whopping $4.5 million. But the median home sale price in the area, $340,000. Now we're going to break it down into Antioch, where they have currently 31 homes on the market. New listings this week, 12, 4 times as many as there were last week, where there were only 3. 6 homes have gone under contract in the past 7 days, and that's the same amount that was under contract the prior 7. The under contract in the past 30 days, 35, almost double what it was the prior month, and a days on market average. Finally, Antioch's coming down 15 days, but they got a full month supply of inventory, and that's mostly because of all the new inventory they just got slapped on this week. The lowest price sold in Antioch was $55,000 with the high of $900,000, and the highest active price, $2.78 million, and a median sales price of $320,000. Now heading over to Volo, Fox Lake, Ingleside, where 23 homes are sitting on the market. 5 new listings this week, no change from last week. 5 homes have gone under contract in the past 7 days. Big jump from the prior week where there was only 1. The 12 properties have gone under contract in the past 30 days, slightly up from the prior month where there was only 10. And a days on market average of only 10 days. But 1.4 month supply of inventory. So homes are taking... well, they're not taking longer to sell, but because there's few of them, because there's many of them, they do have a decent month supply. $30,000 is the lowest price sold. Jeez, I wish I got my hands on that one. $530,000 is the highest price sold, with the highest active of $1.7 million, and the median price of $389,000. Now on to the areas of Grays Lake, Gages Lake, Haynesville, Third Lake, and Wildwood, where they're sitting on 24 active properties at the moment. 6 homes have gone under contract. 6 new listings this week compared to 6 last week. 9 homes have gone under contract in the past 7 days, almost double the prior week where there was 5. And 28 homes in the past 30 days have gone under contract. Big jump from the prior week where there was only, prior month where there was only 18. Days on market average in the area. This one is the longest in the region, though, at 26 days, still less than a month. That's pretty fantastic. Obviously, seller's market territory, and a month supply, paltry 3/4 of a month. $149,000 was the lowest price sold, with $660,000 is the highest price. Highest active on the market right now is $977,900, and a median price of $347,000. Now over to Gurney, Wadsworth, Old Mill Creek, where 18 homes are sitting on the market. 4 new listings this week compared to 7 the prior week. 12 have gone under contract in the past week compared to 7 the prior week. And in the past 30 days, 28 homes have also gone on the market. That's the same as Grays Lake area and the Lindenhurst area. But that's a double of last month, was only 15 had gone under contract. Days on market Average in Gurnee is 14 days and also a half a month supply of inventory. Low price is $149,000 with a high price of $660,000. The highest active for sale is $1.8 million and a $415,000 median sales price. Over to our backyard in Lindenhurst and Lake Villa, where we're sitting on 20 active properties currently, with 4 new listings this week. Big drop from the prior week where there were 16.
Wow.
But 13 homes went under contract in the past 7 days, about tracking the same as the prior 7, where there was 14 in the past month. Also, 28 homes have gone under contract, slightly up from the prior month, where there was 24. And the days on market average in Lindenhurst and Lake Villa is only 11 days. And we have a third of a month of inventory sitting in, waiting to be picked up. Lowest price was $145,000 with a high of $950,000. Woohoo! Lindenhurst Lake Villa wins that one. Highest price in the area in the past 30 days. With a $4.5 million highest active price. Median price, $351,000. And now finishing up with the Round Lake area, where only 9 active properties. 3 new listings this week. Big drop from the prior week, where there was 12. And under contract in the past 7 days was 11, slightly down from the 13 in the prior week. 36 homes have gone under contract in the past 30 days. That's another winner. Round Lake, highest number of homes sold in the past 30 days. About a 30% increase from the prior month, where there was 26. Days on market average is only 17 days, with the shortest month supply of inventory in the region, with only 0.2 months. Lowest price was $90,000 with a high sold price of $475,000, and the highest active price on the market is $575,000, and the median. This is the lowest in the region of $269,000. And that'll do it for our Market Minute. Any surprises, guys?
Not
Same
really,
old.
honestly. It's exactly what I've been seeing. I mean, it's what story do you think that's telling right now, Dick?
Well, it is just more evidence that we have a huge inventory problem, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later on in today's show, because that inventory problem is one of the things we're noticing week after week is the prices just keep going up. And the prices are rising, and a lot of times the appraisals aren't keeping up with the increases, because appraisals typically look behind you to see what things have sold for, but looking forward and seeing how many offers are coming on these properties. Sly, you were telling me just recently that you had a kind of a strange dynamic in the office this week.
Yeah, we had a couple appraisals come in low that we haven't seen in a long time. But, I mean, there's situations where, the buyer had to bid way, way, way over list price just to get the property secured under contract. And then obviously at that point, the appraiser goes out there and they have to use, like you said, the comps that are in the neighborhood that have recently sold. And it's created some little issues, but, at least in both of the cases that I'm, part of were, situations where the seller actually agreed to come down on the price to what the appraisal came in at. One of them did have a little bit of an appraisal gap on it to offset a little bit of that, but I think sellers, and especially if you're working with a good agent, they know. I mean, they know what the comps are. The comps. You can't make them up. You can't manufacture them. You can't go out, out of the neighborhood in order to find something to make it work. That doesn't work that way. So yeah, in both cases, the sellers were able to reduce their price and come to an agreement, and the buyers were happy because they got the home for a little bit cheaper, and the sellers were happy because they still got more than they were initially asking for.
Sure.
So
yeah,
kind of interesting.
Yeah, and obviously this doesn't make any commentary on whatever individual sales those are, because there's a million different scenarios and options.
Right.
But we've had some situations recently in the past, where we've been advising sellers sometimes to accept less on a contract with a stronger guarantee. So we had recently where we just closed it yesterday, where the highest offer price the seller didn't accept because they wanted to go with the highest guarantee.
Right.
Now they got lucky, actually, because the appraisal didn't come in, and the appraisal came in high enough for it. But there was another house over in Cedar Crossing where the asking price and the selling price, it was a $50,000 difference. And the appraisal came in about $20,000 low.
Yep.
And the buyer had to make up that difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's say every deal is different. Every situation is different. There's a million different options out there. But yeah, appraisal is something we really have to look at.
Yeah.
Because not every appraiser, even though they should follow the same guidelines, not every appraiser appraises it the same way.
Right.
We've seen many situations where appraiser came in, had a number, we fought it. Another appraiser came in, and now we have a different number. Now, I from what I understand, I think maybe you, Sly, I was talking to quite a while ago. What's your process when there's multiple appraisals? I know it's different.
Yeah, so we always try to stick with the first appraisal. What we'll do is we'll send that out to the attorneys and the agents and have them kind of go over it and make sure that there's not any errors, that there wasn't anything that was missed. And if the buyer, so we work for the buyer. So if the buyer doesn't want us to do this, it is what it is. This is what the appraisal came in at. But there are times where the buyer wants to buy the house and the appraisal might not be 100% accurate, or maybe they missed something, or maybe they're unaware of something. And so we'll do what's called a reconsideration of value, where the listing agent or the buyer's agent will put together what comps they think maybe are better. And they'll send those to the appraiser and say, hey, this is how we came up with the number. What do you think? And usually when you do that, appraisers are pretty reasonable people. You know, they're not trying to kill deals. They don't want to, if the buyer wants to buy and a seller wants to sell and it makes sense, they want to help with that. So we have had it before where they just, okay, yep, I missed that. Or one that comes to my mind recently was there was a cash sale that was on the same street that was getting ready to close. And as the second that closed, and we can now count that as a comp, we were able to do that. And that definitely helped with, achieving the value we needed, because now you have a recent closed sale on the same street that closed for cash. That's a real deal. So the only times we'll order a second appraisal if there's something wrong with the first one. If it's, they missed something, they didn't get the square footage right and they dig their heels in, things like that.
So I do have a follow-up question to that then. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying correctly. So in a situation where you have multiple appraisals then, okay, do you as the lender have the authority or the ability to choose which one you go by, or do you have to consider both appraisals and then come up with like a number between the two of them? Or is there some sort of metric that you're required to use, or are you able to sort of go, we like this one, we're going to choose this one?
Always worst case scenario. It's always worst case. It's always which one comes in lower. Okay. Unfortunately. So like there are situations, for instance, on like an FHA flip between 90 days and 180 days, you have to do two appraisals if the property is more than 100% of what they originally paid for it. So we've had that before where one will come at the purchase price, one will come in a little bit lower. We have to use the lower one.
Okay.
And if one comes in at the purchase price and one comes in at the higher than the purchase price, we still have to use the lower one, which works.
So then is the purpose of getting another one to convince the original appraiser to reconsider their opinion?
Nope, they're two separate deals. The first one has nothing to do with the second one. They're two independent appraisals, but us as a lender are required to use a worst case scenario always. Okay,
so then what is the benefit of getting a second one if it comes in higher?
There really isn't.
Okay.
There's very few situations that we do get a second appraisal.
Got it.
Like I said, on like a conventional deal, if we can show that the appraiser did something wrong or has their, in their mind that this property. One case, again, I could remember a couple years ago, I was doing a loan in the east part of Lake Forest, east of Sheridan Road, and the appraiser was using comps that were west of Green Bay Road.
Not the same.
Two different worlds, right? And this guy did not want to budge. Oof. And so we did a reconsideration of value. He refused it. And, luckily the underwriter, knew of the area and was like, no, those are two different. It's like two different zip codes almost, even though it's both part of Lake Forest. So we were able to cancel that appraisal and order a new one. But very rare. Typically, the first appraiser is going to stick unless you could prove that something wrong with it. We'll get a second appraisal if, like I said, if it's an FHA flip where it's required by FHA. If that second one comes in low, that's why we're always like kind of gritting our teeth when
Which
that's...
then brings into the importance of the conversation. As Dick had mentioned, having an agent who's going to be willing to appeal that then.
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing is that getting another appraisal isn't going to be worth anything anyway. So having someone who's going to stand up for their clients,
right,
in the event that they know that they're right? Like, so if
Correct.
something's like being grossly overpriced, like you had maybe mentioned, honestly, kudos to those agents that were able to talk to their sellers and be honest with them and be like, listen, we should come down. This appraisal came low and I think it's correct.
Yeah.
Instead of just telling them like, never mind, we're going to put it back on the market and see if we can get something better. I think that that's really cool that you have an agent that's able to be honest with you, but also stand up for you if they know that they can do better for you.
And you can't, the data is the data. You can't, I've seen agents before where they say, okay, well, let's go outside of the neighborhood, a mile away, there's a comp that would work. That's fine if there are none that are in the neighborhood. But if you get an appraisal where all the comps are right there, same school district, same everything, the appraiser legally can't avoid those. In fact, so where we have a problem with this a lot of times is on the chain. Chain, because waterfront versus non-waterfront is really, really tricky. You cannot compare a house that's sitting on the water in Fox Lake to one that's 2 blocks over. Not the same animal.
Absolutely.
And so
Plus, house to house, it's so different.
Right. So in those cases, the appraiser then has to find other waterfront properties that may not be right there. When that happens, right away, that appraiser gets audited and red flagged for fraud because, well, why didn't you use this comp? Why didn't you use that comp? And we had one last summer where there were 18 different comps the appraiser had to explain why he didn't use. It was easy. All he said was, this one's not on the water. This one's not on the water. This one's not on the water. The reason this house is $650,000 is because it's on the water. So things like that, and there are cases where they do go outside of the area. But in general, if you're in a neighborhood and all the houses in your neighborhood are selling for $350,000, your house isn't going to sell for, it's not going to appraise for $500, even if it's way nicer.
Sure. My experience with some appraisers does vary.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously, and it's probably one of the most subjective parts of the transaction is the appraisal, right?
Yep.
When you get two appraisers, two different opinions.
Of course.
But looking at the same data, we've had appraisers, give classifications of condition codes.
Yeah.
One rating at a 2, one rating at a 3. The comps that they did choose, a lot of them will average based on all of them, almost unrelated to condition. And some of them understand when you have a prime property that you don't use an average based on the lower valued or estate sales or as-is properties. We have had situations, that's why I'm surprised to hear of the having to go with the lower. We had a deal with, the name rhymes with Mace, where the appraisal was terrible.
Yeah.
Like, it was completely irrelevant. I kind of think, maybe I'm just being paranoid. I think the appraiser was trying to punish me. We had set an appointment for the appraiser. I always go to every appraisal so I can have that conversation. I'm always respectful. I don't try to force myself on them. I don't push value on them. I ask them if they want my comparables, but I don't, force them to take them. 99% of the times they do take them. But this particular appraiser was about 40 minutes late to the appraisal. This was about a year ago. I
remember this one. It was last summer, right?
I don't recall. It was 40 minutes late to the appraisal, and I just called him and said, "Hey, just curious, if you have any TA when you're going to get here." Oh, I didn't know you were going to meet me there, even though it was clear in all the communications. And he was just kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
So anyway, he wound up coming in. We had a purchase price of $450,000. He came in at $416,000, and it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It was by far the best property. They had huge value in the hardscaping, and they had this beautiful arbor in the back and nice portico, just like amazing. I think it was like $60,000 worth of exterior upgrades, cobblestone driveway, like some really nice, cool features. Credited 0.
Wow.
And we presented that. We presented that to the loan officer, and we said, this is crap. And the appraiser refused to do a reevaluation.
Yeah.
And so Mace said, okay, we are going to authorize a new appraisal, but because it didn't benefit the buyers, my sellers had to pay that cost.
Sure.
Because it was the sellers who would benefit, obviously, from the increased value. And then the new appraisal came in at $450, and they were able to get them close on that.
Right. So that's a situation where the first appraisal was inaccurate. In that case, you can use the new appraisal.
Okay.
If I didn't make that clear, you can. If you could prove that the first appraisal is not a good appraisal for whatever reason, cancel it and order a new one.
That's such an important distinction. I'm glad I delved deeper down there.
No, that is an important distinction
Right.
because we're talking about the difference between getting a second opinion and removing the first opinion entirely.
But now you have to prove that there's something wrong with the first appraisal.
Right.
If they're not giving credit for a finished basement, if they're not giving credit for an extra whatever, that's a wrong appraisal, right?
Yeah.
That makes
so,
sense.
Yeah, you could absolutely in that case fight it and say, nope, we can't use this appraisal. And most of the time they won't let the buyer pay for it. Either the loan officer has to cover it, which normally I do, or
Right.
the seller does.
Which really does make a lot of sense. You know, when I was first getting into real estate, there were a handful of things that I absolutely expected, and they were exactly true later on. And there were a lot of surprises along the way too. And learning how subjective appraisals can be was definitely on the list of surprises for me. I thought that there would be a much more specific set of metrics that were used, and I had no idea. And that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It's just not what I expected for sure.
Well, and it's important to, again, I can't stress this enough, work with someone local. Work with someone that's in the area that has appraisers because we are not allowed to pick the appraiser. I'm not allowed to call the guy. I'm not allowed to. So we order it through a third party, but we have a stable of appraisals that they pick from. We know that they're all good, solid appraisers that are local. When I used to work at a big bank, it was a regular occurrence where they would send an appraiser from Orland Park to appraise a property in Winthrop Harbor. What on earth does that person know about the market in Winthrop Harbor?
Sure.
They don't know all the little details and nuances of this neighborhood versus that neighborhood. So, again, if you're working with someone local that has a good crew that they know, it's going to be a much better experience. And you're going to get a fair appraiser, and you're going to be much less likely to have these kind of issues.
And the appraisers will argue with you that no, it's just data. We know
of
what we're doing.
course.
We have them used to come from Kankakee all the time, especially a few years ago when it was like there were so many deals going on. There were appraisers were booked up for 3 weeks, and if you needed a rush appraisal, he's coming from Rockford, maybe.
Right.
And there is a level of, yes, I understand data is data, but just like you said, there's certain neighborhoods where if there's a break in the school district line,
It's huge.
you could have a $20,000 difference, and the appraiser
Absolutely.
is not going to understand that unless he's told and listens and agrees to consider.
Right. And I was going to mention that one. That's a huge one because there's lines in every area where, one school district versus another. Yeah, if you get someone that just says, oh, well, this is the same city. Well, no. Parts of the city go to this school, parts of the city go to that school.
And
Like
the
you
same
said,
thing
big
can be
difference.
said about even just when you're choosing your agent as well. I mean, even just those early conversations about pricing your home, there's going to be nuances and differences between someone who understands the neighborhood that you're currently in and someone who's not from the area and doesn't have that same unique understanding that just looking up the comps isn't going to necessarily provide you right away.
Right.
Okay, well, that was a lively discussion, and unfortunately, we didn't get to even a tiny bit of what we were going to talk about. We were going to talk about solar panels, but that's
We
okay.
are still going to.
That's why I love this show. It's like because the conversation really directs, and I think what we find interesting, we just keep exploring instead of forcing ourselves into some silly little format. But anyway, we'll be right back.
Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr will return in just a few moments after these important messages. Don't touch that dial.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the music. I'm your host, Dick Barr, with Unlocking Lake County, and here with me is Christin Kaufman.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for watching.
And Sly Marinca.
Hello.
Hey, Sly, you've been on our show. You've been so generous to give us all this time for so long.
My pleasure.
Information.
I don't think I've ever even asked you, if someone wanted to get on, what's your phone number to reach you?
Cell phone is the easiest way. That's 7722-1775, or my website is ccmsly.com.
And then how about you, Christin? How do people get a hold of you if they want to reach you?
Just like Sly, best way to reach me is going to be through my cell phone. The number is 847-977-6751. You can also find me on Facebook, just searching my name. I also have a business page, Christin Kaufman at Village Realty, or Dash Village Realty.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks. And then
Thanks for asking.
Oh, my pleasure. And then to our listeners, if you want to be able to ask us questions or even have your question read on the air and answered on the air, feel free. Or if you have ideas for future shows, information or topics you'd like to discuss in the future, please, you can email me at my initials, db@dickbarr.com. That's db@dickbarr.com, and Barr has 2 R's. Anyway, we are back and ready to roll for our second half hour, and we're going to get right into it with what you all want to hear, and that's and don't jump on it this time, Sly. And that's our the mortgage update with Sly Marinca.
Here is the Mortgage Minute with Sly Marinca and Cross Country Mortgage on Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr.
Wonderful. Thank you again for having me back another week. I'm happy to do it and share the little bit I do know about what we're doing here.
Bit. So
20 years in the
modest, this
business.
guy.
22 years.
I literally learn so much every single time I do these shows from you.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. I try to do my best to just give tips and tricks and get valid information so people can make right decisions on what works best for them. So, with that said, mortgage rates did tick down this week, kind of unexpectedly, but I'm not so sure anymore. The national average, according to Mortgage News Daily, is down to 7.2%, where last week it was 7.39%. The 10-year Treasury yield is down to 4.49. That's down about 6.5 basis points over the last month. And it's just like a teeter-totter. 1 week it's bad, 1 week it's getting better, 1 week it's getting worse, and it's all about the news cycle. So I don't know if you guys remember a couple weeks ago there was an inflation read, a couple different inflation readings that came in hotter than expected, and when that happens, the markets move and they basically kind of get rid of potential future rate cuts by the Fed. And so since that time, though, we have seen several parts of news in the news cycle come out that have been more pro the Fed cutting rates sooner. For instance, 2 weeks ago, we had a GDP reading that came out. GDP is a gross domestic product. It's a reading on how the economy is producing and what it's producing. And the number that came out for the most recent number that came out was at an annualized rate of only 1.6%. Which is far lower than the estimate of 2.2% annual gross domestic product growth. That was a big miss.
Can you give me those numbers again? I'm sorry, I missed them.
Yep. So the number came in at only 1.6% annualized gross. Oh. Down from an estimate of 2.2% annualized growth. So that means the economy's kind of slowing down. That's the first we've really seen a big drop like that.
Yep.
And for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, that is significant.
Huge. Yeah. I mean, you're talking trillions of dollars at that rate. So big miss there. And then the U.S. savings rate, the numbers that have most recently come out for the first quarter. People don't have a lot of disposable income right now. We see that with inflation and the cost of everything. That rate is down to 3.6%. It was at 4% of disposable income being saved as of the last quarter of 2023. And to give you an idea, pre-pandemic, it was at 6.9% in 2019. So people are not saving money.
So those percentages, what are those of percentage of
income?
Of income.
Yep.
Okay.
So people are only saving approximately 3.6% on average of their income. Obviously, we know some people aren't able to save at all, some save more, but that average has gone way down. It was 6.9% in 2019 before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic. Which was already low.
Well, pandemic, everybody got all the stimulus money, and there was nowhere to go and nothing to spend money on, so people's savings shot way up. a lot of that is, almost all of that is gone now.
Now, what is the ideal percentage that you would, obviously you'd like to save all of it, right? But what is the ideal realistic percentage that you'd like to see people being able to save from their income?
It varies obviously from person to person, but
Depends what your job is. Commission employees are a lot different than wage employees.
Right. I mean, in my just personal life, if you could put away 10% for a rainy day and just let that grow.
That's a good goal.
Obviously, on top of retirement and things like that come out. I mean, obviously, I'm a W-2 employee, so we have 401k, things like that. But IRAs, you should be trying to save as much as possible. But yeah, ideally, 10% is kind of what I live my life off of. But that's not good. Seeing these numbers that people are not able to save what they were, and people are living paycheck to paycheck more and more. It's just another testament to this economy with the higher inflation that we've seen. And then the last number that was really a shock, to me at least, was the April job growth number that just came out last week. That was another big miss. It was predicted that 240,000 new jobs would be created in April. Only 175,000 were created.
Wow,
that's a big miss.
I know it doesn't. It's
still 170,
that is significant.
but it's trending downward. They keep basically changing the numbers lower from the previous months as well. So that's and unemployment ticked up to 3.9%.
Still it's near zero.
Right, right. Yeah, these aren't like end of the world numbers or anything.
Right.
But the trend is kind of like, okay, things are kind of now starting to crack a little bit, which will lead eventually to Fed rate cuts, and that's what this is all looking forward to. So now because of these bad couple things, it's back to potentially 2 rate cuts this year. And how crazy is this?
Week after week, it keeps changing.
Yeah, I mean it's all about the news. What's the latest news? And the economy's great. No, the economy's bad. It's I don't know. It's a teeter-totter right now. But the day that the jobs number came out, that was a big miss. Normally, that's not good. We need as many jobs as possible, and we need people working the economy to keep it going. And that day when the jobs number came out and missed by a ton, Wall Street, the stock market, took off. Because now they're like, the Fed's going to cut rates sooner than we expected. That's all they're waiting for. They want that cheap money.
Wow.
So usually that would be the opposite. Usually when a number would miss like that, because that technically is really bad for the economy, normally Wall Street would react in a negative fashion. Right. But because they're just so focused on these Fed rate cuts that are coming, hopefully sooner rather than later, the stock market actually took off that day and had a huge gain.
So interesting.
Very weird, very strange times.
It's less right now about the sky is falling, be prepared, and more about keep your eyes open for opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this is the type of high resolution information that you guys provide that I think our listeners really enjoy, because it's so far beyond the surface, and it's really telling that story. And just like you said, because people are expecting us schlubs at home sitting and not paying attention to that market. Are not really understanding what makes it go up, what makes it go down, what causes these things. And this is the high resolution that I think is very useful for our listener base.
Oh, well, and the news. I mean, the day the jobs number missed, they come out with it, and they talk about it for 2 seconds, and then they move on to the next thing. They don't really and I know you're right. I do think people want to know, especially people that are coming into the market that want to maybe buy or sell their home. It absolutely makes sense to know, hey, what's the trend look like? So I totally agree. Obviously I'm in that world, and I get updates daily, and I see these things, and I see these wild swings and interest rates, and I'm happy to share what I see, and I'm not reinventing the wheel or anything. I'm just basically sharing kind of what I see. So
a great example of kind of what I'm referring to is the recently in a conversation with someone on a Facebook group, and they were, they thought they knew everything, and that's fine. Most people do. So I don't hold anything against that. But they said, well, we can't wait until rates come down so I can, afford to buy a house. And that's, and I said, well, no, be careful, because if rates come down, yes, it's going to do a couple of things. Yeah. It's going to bring more buyers to the market,
right?
And they have to come down a lot in order to free up the seller inventory. And when they free up the seller inventory, you're also creating even more buyers in the market. So we're in this kind of catch-22, and this is a high-resolution idea.
Right.
Is if rates go up, inventory will shrink further, causing prices to go up. If rates come down, more buyers will free up into the market, causing more, again, supply versus demand issue and causing prices to rise. The only thing that I think is going to help us if we start freeing up some inventory and start building, and just like with gold mining, when gold price is high, you encourage more mining. When oil prices are high, you encourage more drilling. Hopefully, now that home prices are high, you're going to encourage more development. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in the second hour, because that's really where I think we're going to have to go in order for us to see some breathing point in this market. But I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree totally. Everything you said is dead on. We missed a decade of building new homes after the Great Recession. With at least a lot of the builders I know and I worked with, before the Great Recession, a lot of them went belly up. They couldn't withstand that when, the prices, you could buy a home for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. You couldn't afford to build it for that.
Right.
So what was the use, right? So we missed a whole decade of new home building growth but the population during that time didn't decrease. It's not like people stopped having kids. It's not like people stopped living. So,
and then COVID, of course, affected that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then, there's obviously the supply chain issues we had, it's stunted growth, the astronomical cost. I mean, gosh, do you remember what the, cost of lumber was during COVID?
$26 a 2x4.
Who could afford to build a house? And so, I think it's just a matter of, if the rates do come down significantly, at what cost, right? It's not going to be super fun if that happens, because that means there's a lot of other things that are going on and a lot of other things that are probably going bad, including unemployment ticking up and things like that. So,
but also room for opportunity.
Absolutely. There's always room for opportunity. And, I think that, I don't see rates going up too much more, at least at this point, unless something crazy happens, which who knows. But it's looking like this is the first kind of signs that we were waiting for, with the GDP growth miss, with the April jobs number that came in lower, with the savings rates, things like that should cause the Fed to start to make some moves.
Okay, so it's like, hey, the economy sucks. Yay, rates are coming down.
Right, yeah, go figure. But in any case, so that was it with, did you want me to talk a little bit about what I was talking about, the documentation portion of my world? To. All right, so that concludes the market part, and then I'm going to give you a couple tips and tricks today on documentation and what to expect from your lender when you're looking to purchase a home. We've had some clients lately that just refuse to give us paperwork, and it's like, well, wait a second, like, I'm not asking you for this because I want to see it. It's because that's what's required to approve your loan, whether it's a conventional loan, an FHA loan, a VA loan. They all have their own required documents, things like pay stubs, W-2s for the last 2 years. Pay stubs, typically you're looking at 30 days. So if you get paid biweekly, that's 3 pay stubs to hit that 30 days. 2 pay stubs will only cover 28 days. If it's semi-monthly or twice a month, you need 2. If it's monthly, you need 1. If it's weekly, you need 5. So pay stubs is huge. W-2s for the last 2 years. If you're self-employed, a lot of times tax returns, personal, business returns, K-1s, things like that. And then bank statements. Most of the time, your lender's going to need a couple months of bank statements. You'll want to provide all the pages. I can't tell you how many times people send me page 1 of 4 and 2 of 4 and then say, oh, well, there was nothing on 3 or 4. You're right. I don't want to see it because it's fun. It's just that's what's required. So bank statements, any kind of other asset statements, always make sure you're sending all of the pages. A big one, divorce decrees, child support orders, if you're on a payment plan with the IRS, just as complete of a picture as possible up front so that your lender can get that into underwriting and get a good, accurate decision for you.
Do you mind going into detail a little bit when you say asset statements, what you mean by that?
So if you have a 401k or if you have any kind of brokerage account or, whether it's E-Trade or TD Ameritrade or Schwab or Fidelity, whoever, sometimes those are big files. For instance, like, Edward Jones, they do it quarterly. So they only send them once a quarter. And, you want to make sure you send all of that in up front. The more you send, the better it's going to go through underwriting and the less they're going to require later. So I promise you the loan officer is not asking you for this stuff because they want to see it or because
or to ruin your day.
It's simply what's required. So it's going to be easier and better for you, the home buyer, when you get this stuff up front. So, and if anybody ever needs a list, I have an awesome PDF that I could send out that, they can see exactly what's typically required.
I would actually love it if you could send that to me when we're done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thanks for that information. And there's no question, when everything is smooth on the lending side, the entire transaction goes better. Right? It's night and day.
Yeah.
We've all had those experiences with lenders that really didn't do a great job of, putting people through any sort of pre-underwriting to get them ready. And it happens a lot on some of the more fringe loans too, especially like some of the IDA loans. They didn't do the class yet, and they got to do the class, and it delays
Last
the closing.
minute,
and a lot of that stuff's not easy for regular people to find. Because they don't have great filing systems.
Right.
Typically, you ask people for their old closing statement on their home. What? I got a closing statement? I didn't know. Wait, did I have a home?
Right.
We had a question posed online that I want to get to. I want to answer. Let me just read it directly. I don't want to screw it up. Janet asked, she said, what raises the appraisal the most? Where would be the best place to put improvements into to raise the appraisal? And that's a great question. And what's interesting about appraisals, and a lot of people don't understand, is that they are very subjective. And a lot of times on a sale, the appraiser aims for not the actual value of the house.
Right.
They tend to aim for the contract price. So generally you're going to see, in most cases, one of two things. You're either going to see an appraisal at contract price or less.
Yep.
Very rarely will you see it come in over. I don't know exactly why that is. I guess they use the kind of, and we should have, you had this idea, Sly, we should have an appraiser in here. I think that'd be a great idea.
I do too.
But the appraiser might go by saying, well, the value of a home is what a person's willing to pay for it, and the contract price is $300,000, so therefore the appraisal value is $300,000. And they don't always go along that, obviously, if it's more. But very rarely will you see for the increase. But if you're doing an appraisal for a refinance, that's completely different.
Right.
So do you see refinance appraisals tend to come in more actual value than necessarily just contract price?
Yeah, definitely. You're 100% right. On most purchases, the appraiser is just aiming for the contract price.
Right.
Now, if it's blatantly underpriced, which we have seen, especially this year where, the seller just wants to sell quick and there's other homes that are selling down the street for way more, we have seen them in this market come in higher. But typically, you are correct, it's just going to be the purchase price normally. Whereas on a refinance, the appraiser is going to, it's going to be a fair appraisal, but they typically will come in, we see them come in a little bit better than expected, more than we do on purchases.
Right.
So if the homeowner thinks their house is worth $300,000 and the appraiser comes in at $325,000, that's a bonus for the homeowner. Whereas if they're buying the house for $300,000, it's probably just going to come in at $300,000.
Right.
But to answer her question, though, I mean, obviously square footage, additions, things like that. That's usually where you're going to get, if you add a bathroom, if you add a bedroom, finishing space, like. But I get people all the time that, they'll buy a house and then a year later they'll want to refinance and, I got all this equity because I painted and changed the flooring. That ain't it, my friend.
So structural, not aesthetic.
Yeah, and updating, obviously, kitchens and bathrooms and things like that, but...
Right. Obviously, you just nailed it on that one. Kitchens, baths are the biggest bang for the buck.
Yep.
And you got to be careful about what you put the money into, because not everything, like additions, I think, generally speaking, while they will increase the value, usually the cost of those additions is it's cost prohibitive. At least you don't get a return on investment for those. And surprisingly, though, age of some of that stuff actually will help with the appraisal. So like age of carpeting, age of new lighting, if there's new LED lighting, even though they're not technically raising value, from a dollar perspective, an appraiser will assign a condition to your property. Right. And so, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it goes to 5.
Yep.
And the more things that are 10 years or newer, the higher quality classification you get, which can bump up your appraisal value. But again, it's not a dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
We can't say, oh, that will raise your value $5,000 or $2,000. But like a kitchen upgrade, we can fairly estimate what a brand new kitchen or a brand new bathroom, something that adds to the overall appeal of the property, is definitely going to be in your best bet. Now, surprisingly, we've seen significant value increases. Now, this is not an appraiser question. So you asked a question about the raise the appraisal value, but I'm going to tell you from a marketing resale value. Painting your cabinets in today's market, if you've got some of the old golden oak cabinets, you're going to see higher marketability and higher sales prices by just doing the kind of painting those cabinets white, maybe adding some 4-inch crown molding to the top of the cabinets, making them look more significant. You can do that really inexpensively. You could do it by yourself, but be very careful. If you do a poor job and you can see the wood behind it, or you got a lot of drip marks, you didn't raise any value.
Right.
But if it looks good, surprised what painting your cabinets will do to value. So I hope that, Janet, answers your question. That brings us to the end of our first hour. We'll be back shortly after this message.
Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr will return in just a few moments after these important messages. Don't touch that dial.
Listening to Unlocking Lake County
Unlocking Lake County.
with Dick Barr. 98.3 The Life.
St. Gilbert's Catholic Church in Grays Lake reminds the class of 2024. Each year, over half of all traffic fatalities involve teenage drivers. During your prom and graduation festivities, remember, underage drinking is illegal. Driving while under the influence of drugs or alcohol is lethal. Drive with care. Don't take that dare. The life you save could be your own. This from St. Gilbert's Catholic Church in Grays Lake. For worship, they can be reached at 847-223-4731.
And welcome back. I'm your host, Dick Barr, here for another episode of Unlocking Lake County with Christin Kaufman
Hello, hello.
and Sly Marinca.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for joining us back, and thanks for sticking around for another hour, everyone. At the beginning of the show, we were going to talk about solar panels because it's become quite a hot issue in real estate, and I want to talk about the pros, the cons, and make sure everyone knows what you should consider and what you shouldn't consider if you're planning on solar panels and you think it's going to have an effect on the value of your home. Either of you guys have solar panels?
I do not.
No?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know much about solar panels?
I know that they have caused a handful of transactions to get a little complicated.
Okay. Yep. That's going into what we're going to talk about today.
But that is really the main amount of knowledge that I've gained about it is the trouble that it's caused people. I mean, I know that it gives people a sense of pride when they do get them because they feel like they're doing some good for the earth and that they believe that they are saving money on their energy bills.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. And I can't argue either of those 2 points. I think the people who are conservation conscious, I think they're a great thing. And I think people who looking to save some money on their utility bills, I think they're a great thing too. But I think there's ways to go about it that are better than others, especially one of the things that I take I don't know if offense is the right word too, but I've been told by several people in the neighborhood, and I've seen actually the marketing materials from some of these solar companies, and they actually come out and tell homeowners that having solar panels on their house will raise the value of your home.
God.
Yeah, and it's truly not true.
That's just a lie.
Especially in our market, in the northern markets. Is the effect different in Arizona? Maybe. Florida? Maybe. California? I don't know. But I know at least here, we don't have as much annual daily sunlight as all of those other places with obviously hotter climates, more sunshine. But I do see other agents from around the country complaining about them too, and agents who are in Florida and Arizona. And by no means do I want to tell people that solar panels are a bad thing, because I think they have their place. But they do not raise the value of your home, and that's kind of what I want to get into and explain why that is. And there's a couple of ways to do solar panels. Number one, you can buy them outright. And I don't have any personal anecdotes that says if you own them, if they'll increase the value of your home or not. But we do have personal anecdotes about leasing them because it's a completely different animal. One of the benefits of owning them is you own all of the electricity output that comes off those solar panels. So if you overproduce, you can sell it back to ComEd. So if you need 50 kilowatt hours and you produce 60, the electricity that gets sent back through your meter actually rolls back your meter in a sense, and ComEd buys that energy from you, and they resell it to someone else. But when you lease it, typically, especially with some of the big companies, and I'm assuming the smaller companies as well, they own the panels, and you can only get to zero usage. And if you overproduce that, the solar panel company owns and is able to sell that back to to the utility provider. And in our case here, of course, it's ComEd, Commonwealth Edison. So that's an advantage to it. So in the summer where it's really cranking out and it's covering almost your entire bill, and it's even paying for the air conditioning, you'll see this effect. In the winter, that's when your electric bill goes up. For us, the electric bill goes up in the summer because we're using air conditioning, but people with solar panels, their electric bill goes up in the winter because the panels are not producing enough electricity to function the entire house. In addition to that, on a lease, you've got a monthly lease payment, and that's usually an accelerating payment, so it might start off at, depending on how many panels you own, could be $50 a month, could be $100 a month, depending on your usage. And that amount will typically escalate by about 2% a year. So if you start out at $50 a year today, in 20 years, you'll be paying about $85 a month for that lease payment. And I'm assuming that utility bills probably increase at a specific rate. I don't know what that rate is, and I don't know if it's comparable to the lease payment or not. But at the end of the 20 years, you don't own them automatically. You still have to buy them from the solar companies. So on a deal we just did, we had multiple offers the first time around. And all the buyers agreed to accept the transfer agreement for the solar panels. And the buyer whose bid was selected, once they read the 60-page contract that they had to agree to, they were like, no, I'm going to want this. And they wound up killing the deal. We wound up having to go back on market.
Are you able to talk about what any of the specific things were in the lease agreement for the solar panels?
They didn't tell us.
Okay.
They didn't tell us. We just knew it was the reason. And when I read the agreement, I could point to why I wouldn't want to assume that the term.
Okay.
Number one, it's a 20-year term that you're committing to. Number two, you might have trouble if you want to selling it to someone. Number three, the cost of it goes up every year, but it's a known increase. It's not like an unknown, so it's capped. Number four, the panel lease is a 20-year term. But language in the contract says that they only warrant against roof damage caused by the solar panels for 10 years. So they're on there for 20, and then you're only protected from damage for 10. And I think that's really the biggest one.
Yeah.
That buyers look at that and says, whoa. Because if you have to make a roof repair, that's expensive now, because now you have to have hire a company to have the panels removed, and then the roof repair done, and then the panels reinstalled. So when you start doing that, even just once, I'm assuming all those savings that you got
out the window.
At what point is it no longer makes sense. So, and even if you were to buy them outright, these systems are expensive. Now there are tax credits available, I think, still from the federal government. And which will help with the expense of the installation. But I think when you're only saving $50 or $100 a month, if you think about, so on a 12-year term, if you're saving $50 a month, that's $600 a year. How many years do you have to have it before you pay for a $25,000 system? And I don't know what the term of the payoff is. You're a math guy.
So, and they do have an expiration date. They do not last forever. So just because you put them up there, who knows? Yeah, especially if you have a lot of trees, if you have windstorms, whatever, they might not last forever. If you pay for that up front, and now talk to your homeowner's insurance, maybe that might cover some of the events. But even if everything is perfect, I know they don't last forever. So after 25 years, do you have to replace that whole system again to where you need all new panels because they've expired, their useful life?
Good question.
So interesting. It's one of those things that I had never really crossed my mind that they would have an expiration date, and then as soon as you say it, it just makes immediate sense. Of course, nothing lasts forever.
Nothing lasts forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Over time, they deteriorate.
And probably functional obsolescence is probably built into them, I would assume.
Absolutely.
It's built into everything we use, our phones, our computers, everything.
Right.
Gone are the days of, a 50-year-old refrigerator still working, So I'm assuming that's the same, when these companies create their business models, I'm assuming they're going to we get to re-sign them for another 20 years when this is done, if they're still alive.
Sure, of course.
I don't want to come off as saying that solar panels are a bad idea.
Right.
I don't want it to look like I'm against them. I just want the public to be aware of what they are getting into if they do sign up for this, because it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
And it could potentially cost. Another very specific situation. One of the offers, once when we were reviewing the multiple offers, we sent the contract, the transfer agreement to all the potential buyers. One of the offers came back and said, okay, well, we're dropping our offer by $10,000 because of the way that agreement's written. So now they weren't wind up not being the winning bid anyway.
Of course.
So, and this house is already closed, so I'm not worried about screwing anything up here. But the know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And if the salesman tells you that this is going to raise the value of your home, pick up the phone, call me, and say, put me on speaker, and have him tell that to me.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to correct him on that situation. We had looked into solar panels about a year ago.
Like personally?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you know what? We've got a great sun exposure. You know, we've got southern exposure off the back of our house. We would get to put them on the back of our house because a lot of people complain about them being ugly.
They are ugly.
And I hear it. I don't see it that way. I kind of like, to me, it's like, ooh, technology. And I kind of like, I'm not bothered by the aesthetics, but I hear you. He came in and I was like, okay, this looks good. And then started reading the agreement.
Yeah.
Always read the agreement.
Fine print. Read the
Always
fine print.
Read it. Yep. Even though it's 50 pages, read it. And when I came to that 10-year warranty against damage to the roof, I'm like, whoa, if you up it to 20, the term of the lease, I will sign. And he started doing like a little bit of a hard sell on me. He kind of just, well, if you're not going to do it, fine, we're just done here. And he started closing up. Like, it's like, oh, okay, goodbye.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, so to be clear here, no one is saying don't do it. Solar panels are terrible, especially if it means something to you on a personal level, right? Like if you are actively trying to be like environmentally conscious, do it if that's what your heart is telling you to do. Just don't do it based on the idea that it's going to raise the value of your home. That's all that is really being said, bottom line here.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And know what you're getting yourself into. Read the fine print before you sign onto the dotted line. Those guys that come and knock on the door, they're wonderful salesmen
and that's
or
their
saleswomen.
job.
And that's their job,
what they're supposed to
absolutely.
do.
But, I have also been on transactions before where buyers have backed out once they read it and they say, well, my payment's going to go up because you got to assume that lease. And if it's an extra $100 a month and things are already tight, it might be enough to put people over the edge.
And
so
good for
just
them
beware.
for going out of their way to actually read those agreements too.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's easy for us to say, given the line of work that we do. I mean, Dick and I we're realtors, right? Like we deal with contracts all day, every day. So reading a term agreement is not really anything out of like the scope of normal for us and for you as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are detail oriented as well for your job, so that's very easy for us to say. But as a regular person, just being given a stack of documents, they might just be like, oh, I'm sure it's fine, So good for anyone who has gone out of their way to do that, because that's not like just second nature to a lot of people, given the jobs that they have and the life that they live.
Right.
Like those software agreements, like click here to say you've read and agreed to the terms.
Oh, sure.
4,000 pages long. And to your point, Christin, the same thing holds true. If you're going to do repairs to your house, a lot of times people say, hey, should I do this to my house? Well, it depends how long you're going to live there. Do you love it? Are you planning on selling it within 5 years? Well, the answers to the question matter, because if you plan on living there 20 years, I don't care what you do to your house. It's your house. You do whatever you want. But if you're doing it because you want it to raise value, well, that's a different answer. So people want solar panels, by all means, go do it. But don't do it thinking that there's going to be a financial benefit in the marketability of your house or value in your house. Okay, let's move on, although we might as well not. I mean, we I was afraid it was only going to be a 5-minute bit, but yeah, we spent 22 minutes on that.
Like, when have we ever brought up a topic on the show or outside of the show that only lasted 5 minutes?
I know, we're terrible.
We're great.
Okay, we're going to jump to the kind of runaway housing inflation. I want to get started on this because knowing our track record, we'll probably go long on that anyway. So let's give ourselves enough time to really kind of talk about it. As everyone's aware, home prices have just skyrocketed since COVID. They've escalated at a pace and duration longer than anything else I've experienced in my 20-year career. Even more so than back in 2004 to 2008 when things were just crazy. Everything seemed like it was going up, and it's never going to stop increasing. And we obviously, we saw that wasn't the case in 2008. But we're in a different market, and I'm not trying to be alarmist here because back then, prices were going up because people were buying multiple homes because they really believed prices could always go up. So they were buying 1 house, 2 house, 3 house, 4 houses and doing rehabs on them or not, and still being able to flip them from a profit. So when the rug got pulled out, all those people with 2, 3, 4 homes now had a problem because mortgage costs, monthly mortgage payments, were far greater than what you can rent it out for. So if you got stuck with 4 properties, you didn't even have a backup plan where you can just rent them out, and now you own 4 houses and they're paying for themselves. So the people who leveraged a large amount of properties obviously caused, huge ripples through the bank system. We're in a different situation right now. Yes, property values are going up, 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 but it's not because people are buying multiple homes. People are struggling to buy a single home, and rental prices are incredibly high. Mm-hmm. So if you did get stuck with a property, you could feasibly rent it out and cover that mortgage payment and the taxes and the insurance. So, I don't see any crashes coming soon. People say to me, well, I'm going to wait until the market crashes and then we're going to... I just don't see it happening. Mm-hmm. If you look at the long-term trend and you compare it with the number of new people coming into the country, high immigration, all these people need places to live. Mm-hmm. We're not building new places. We're actually losing stock as some housing is getting too old or functionally obsolete. It's getting torn down, or lots are getting combined. People buying two houses, knocking them down and building one. So we're losing housing stock. I'm not going to say we're losing it faster than we're building it, but we're not building housing stock fast enough to keep up with the huge demand we have. So I don't see this prices coming down. So I want to talk about, ways that you can overcome this if your dream home is now completely out of your affordable range. Christin, I know you've done a little bit of house buying and selling over the past, 5, 7, 8 years. Mm-hmm. Talk about briefly, what was it like for you buying a house? What sacrifices did you have to make the first time, and what sacrifices, if any, did you have to make the second time, and how you used one house to leverage into a bigger, better house, if you did?
Sure. Yeah, of course. I love that you said briefly, as if we do anything briefly. So I first purchased a home in 2018, and even though the market wasn't anywhere near what it is now, it was still incredibly competitive. When we did finally find a place, I want to say it was the 6th or 7th offer that we had submitted that finally got accepted. And, I've talked about this in previous episodes, so I will be kind of brief about this, but basically we had a list of things that we wanted. We wanted a yard. We wanted a single family home. We wanted to have, we had a child on the way, so we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of space. And, when comparing that to what our budget was at the time, those things really just didn't add up. So we started looking at single-family homes that were going to be more conservative in price.
Is this the first house or the second?
This was our first purchase.
First purchase, okay.
This is us trying to break into the housing market. Yep. Because even then, rent prices were insane. But anyway, so when we had adjusted what we were looking for as far as like size and quality of a house, we still were very much married to the idea of doing a single family home. And when we started looking at single family homes that were within our price range at the time, we'd find a house that we were maybe willing to settle for. And we were like, I think we can make this our own. We would do the inspection, and there would be a lot of things that were very alarming in the inspections that were coming up because of, and that was reflected in the price of that and the affordability. So we went back to the drawing board and had to reconfigure what it was we were going to be willing to, I don't want to say settle for, but maybe adjust our expectations on. And so we ended up going for a smaller townhome, which was not what we originally thought that we wanted, but it was within our price range, and we were able to get into what felt like, and is, a very nice neighborhood. We felt safe there, and so that was, I think, our first sacrifice, if you will, was giving up having a yard and the dream home that we wanted.
How long?
We lived there for a little over 5 years.
5 years, and then what did you do after you spent 5 years there?
At that point, that's when we contacted you to be our agent and sell our townhome. And you did give us the recommendation to paint our cabinets, and it was super effective, by the way, folks. If you are rolling your eyes thinking that painting your cabinets isn't going to do that much of a difference, it super did. Anyway, so we ended up selling our townhome for significantly more than we bought it for, which was very helpful in us being able to elevate the next place that we were looking for. But also, we had built equity in those 5 years of living there and making our consistent mortgage payments. And so then we were able to take that between the profit and the equity that we had built and put it into our next home, which was our next step up. And so we were able to get a yard, and we were able to get more space and more bedrooms and provide a home that we wanted to for our family. Is this our forever home? No. It's not. There are still more things that we want for ourselves in a home. In fact, just this morning I was talking with my husband about wanting to have a couple of new different things in a home for our next purchase. So we are still in our building phase, if you will. We're not building an actual home, but we are building towards what it is our ultimate goal is. And so if getting into the market right now is scaring you because you're looking at a beautiful home that you'd like to live in, print out a picture of that and put it on your Pinterest board and remind yourself that you can work towards that, but there are a lot of other options where you can adjust your expectations now and find something that is within your purchase power currently, reminding yourself that this doesn't have to be your forever home, but getting literally anything that you can start to build equity on and potentially turn for a profit can, and in most cases will, result in being able to take the next step towards what your ultimate goal is.
Okay, well, now you just killed the whole segment. You gave the outcome.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. You said brief, and I ignored it. Listen, I
You
warned
totally
you.
ignored it. I just wanted you to answer the question.
I thought I did.
You did, right? Then you gave the outcome. I'm just teasing you.
No.
I'm just teasing you. But yeah, no. I mean, ultimately, to put it into perspective, is that move up concept. What you're talked about, building your forever existence. But yeah, so and I understand your sensitivity to calling it settling, but there's a level of settling that it is, and yes, it's adjusting expectations. And it's putting the expectations into what you can buy. And we're going to go further into that in the next half hour, what that means and what that looks like in a more kind of high resolution. But I'm just teasing you, Christin. But you did answer more than I expected.
There are other options as well, though, right? So what we were able to...
We'll be back.
Oh, just kidding.
Welcome back to Unlocking Lake County with your host, Dick Barr. Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr will return in just a few moments after these important messages. Welcome back to Unlocking Lake County with your host, Dick Barr.
And welcome back. I'm your host, Dick Barr, here for Unlocking Lake County. And joining me is Christin Kaufman.
Hi, everybody.
And Sly Marinca from the Sly Marinca team at Cross Country Mortgage.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back, everyone, here on our final half hour. And we're going to finish up what we started talking about before the break about runaway housing cost inflation and then what we can do about it. And Christin brought up a really great point about how it's that first house doesn't have to be your forever house. The second house doesn't have to be your forever house. And we need to look at, well, not we, but you should look at the benefits of resetting your expectations and buying homes in more affordable areas or more affordable conditions. And instead of assuming that you can go straight into this market in the home that your parents can afford, because we lived in an era where that was the case. You could literally buy a home as nice as your parents, you know, something that took your parents decades to get, and you're going in because house prices were so low here in this area. And, you know, house prices being low has a lot to do with the high tax rate here in Lake County in Illinois. So they've somewhat kept home prices artificially low. But now that we're seeing that increase, we have to, if you want to be able to successfully acquire real estate, we got to look at other options. About a month or two ago, we had someone on the show, Ken Bryant, who was a contractor, and he gave some great advice on, you know, things, different projects you can do to make a house yours. Because a lot of times when you buy a new house, or not a new house, but let's say you buy a house and the seller, you know, just went crazy updating it. All new kitchens, all new bathrooms, brand new carpet, beautiful new paint colors on the walls. You pay a premium for that. To get that level of luxury, to get that level of quality, you're paying a premium. And when you sell it in 5 or 10 years, it's no longer new. It's not the newest, latest, greatest. So now you're selling a 10-year-old design, a 10-year-old's taste, not a 10-year-old's taste, a 10-year-old taste. And so that premium that you paid for it when you purchased, just like when you buy a brand new car, you're going to see a depreciation of the wow factor unless you kept maintaining the house over time, you know, every couple of years doing a different project. A way around that is if you were to reset your expectations and maybe look at fixer-upper homes or homes in areas. Let's say you don't have kids yet. Maybe buy a house in an area where the school's not known to be excessively fantastic. But that gets you your starting point to starting to build equity. And now things can go wrong. When we bought in 2005, it was the peak, 2005, it was just about the peak of the market. And then the market crashed. And we got stuck in that house for, I say stuck, but we love it. We're still there. But we got, you know, typically, you know, Americans every 7 to 8 years, they buy a new house. And we've been there. This is our 19th year. So those things can happen. And that's kind of one of the, another episode we had, we talked about the golden handcuff effect, or aging in place is, you know, one option is to buy the house in the exact location you could spend the rest of your life in case you had to. But another option is to, you know, find different ways to make your home purchase more affordable, and do what Christin did. So now, and I was teasing with you, Christin, before, is because you kind of got to the punchline before I wanted to kind of discuss that in more depth, but it's quite all right, is when you made your upgrade and you said it was not your forever home, you're still not in your forever home, and that's absolutely fine. What were some of the improvements that you got from going from house 1 to house 2?
Well, going from house 1 to house 2, we went from a townhome to a single family home. So right away we just We gained being able to be in our own space that was just ours. We also, with that, gained having a fenced-in yard at that, which was really important to us having young kids. We were able to gain moving into a better school district because that did matter to us at that point.
Yeah, you're in Grace Lake now, right? Yeah.
And also we gained an additional bedroom. We gained an additional full bathroom. We gained square footage, and we gained selling power for the future, potential profit.
Yeah, and if I recall, you had a pretty decent chunk of equity when you made that transition. What happened to your mortgage payment between the two houses? Do you remember?
What do you mean?
What was the difference in, like, don't go me the actual numbers, but
Sure.
were they similar mortgage payments? Was it a huge increase?
It was an increase. I wouldn't say it was a huge increase, although now with our new tax bills, it's a pretty significant increase. No,
Different topic.
yeah, but,
Right. Yeah.
but it did increase a bit. But also our lives increased a bit. Our income increased a bit because we weren't in our 20s anymore,
Right.
just figuring it out. So our profit obviously helped, but also just having our lives progress the way that they were supposed to as we grew up also made it. It made us capable to be able to take on a higher mortgage payment as well.
Right. True. Yeah. And so the point I was wondering about is because sometimes if you've built up enough equity in your home, sometimes that move up is a lateral move from a payment perspective.
Right.
Yes.
But of course, if you have desire for bigger, better, of course it won't be that same effect. But I've seen buyers go from, let's say a mortgage payment of about $2,000 on something that's a starter home, and then after 7-8 years move up and keep that mortgage payment the same or even less, especially in areas where, like, 4 years ago when rates were 2.5% to 3%.
To your point, though, the house that we purchased now, so the house that we bought, our second home, we would not have been able to afford buying that house had it not have been for our previous purchase. So even though our mortgage did increase a bit, it was not as high as it would have been had we not have had that equity to put into buying that home.
Yeah.
So it does still go along with what you're saying. And to piggyback off of that a little bit, you had talked about one of the options, if you're trying to just get into the market, would be figuring out maybe a location where a school district doesn't matter and then moving on. And that is definitely an option. But I'm also a big believer in building the community that you're in and working with what you've got, right? So an option as well, if you have the time and the tenacity to do so, is to go into a location that has potential for development to become a desirable area and sit down with yourself and your community and go, okay, so what can we do to make this a desirable area? What can we do to work with what we have to make this better, to make this good, and then build upon that as well?
It's funny, the same concept is true in, like, school districts. So I've seen, like, some people stigmatize certain school districts and say, the school district is terrible. But a lot has to do with the students, the families, involvement in that school.
Local policy, get involved in that.
The difference between a bad school and a good school could literally be as simple as parental involvement. How strong are the PTOs? How strong is the involvement between the students and the teachers, the parents and the teachers, the parents and the administration? And my kids go to Lake Villa schools, and I think their administration's fantastic. We've got great relationships with them. You can pick up the phone and talk to the superintendent. You can talk to the principal. What are you going to say?
No, that's awesome. That's exactly what you want.
It's awesome, and they make you feel welcome when you go in there and talk to them, or even the school board. There's a lot, and that's, you talk about getting involved in local
Local anything.
Local anything. School boards are a great path. Library boards are a great path to get involved and make your community better.
Absolutely.
Village has tons of volunteer opportunities. All these organizations do. And then if volunteering is not what you're looking for, then running for official position on those boards. Be a part of the policy. Be a part of the budget. Everyone complains about taxes. Well, guess who charges the taxes? All of these boards, they're charging these taxes. So if you're upset about your taxes, run for a board position. Don't do it as a single issue thing, though. Don't be like, I hate that they did this, so I'm going to run for that and destroy it. No one wants you to co-destroy our library. What they want you to do is go there, understand what that position is, have a passion for that position, have a passion for what the objectives and goals are of that organization, and then communicate with the community about what can we do to make it better.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, Sly, earlier in the episode, we were talking about, you know, some of the signals in the economy not being what we wanted them to be. And I mentioned earlier today, that also means that there's room for opportunity, right? And similar to what we're talking about here, you know, if you're looking at an area that isn't considered desirable, or you know that there's opportunity for improvement, you can either just be upset about the fact that that's all you can afford right now, and I mean, not really end up being very happy with your decision or your options and just be upset, or you can choose to see the opportunity and improve upon what it is that is within your means and make it what you want it to be so that you can be happy with your decision.
Right, and I just always feel like everybody's got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
Like we live in the MTV Cribs generation where it's like, I have to have this and that and this. And much like Dick, my wife and I, we bought our townhome at the worst possible time, and we were stuck in it for 10 years because we ended up having our first daughter and our second daughter, you know, and we couldn't move because of we bought it at the worst possible time. So, but, you know, you got to start somewhere. And
did you die?
We did not. We did not at all. You know.
And were you upset?
I mean, it wasn't fun watching all of our neighbors, that went into foreclosure, and people buying them for a third of what we'd paid for ours.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we stuck it out, and we still never broke even. That was a sad part. After 10 years of making mortgage payments, we still sold it for less than what we paid for it.
On that townhome?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Townhome. Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
That hurt, but it's okay. You know what? It was a great place to live, but it's people got to start somewhere. To your point, and make your community better. Pick an area that, like you said, and everything is in cycles too. The older I get, the more I've been involved in this business for 22 years, everything is in cycles. Things go up and they come down. So what you're getting now isn't going to stay the same. Hopefully it goes up by the time you need to sell it. But even if it does come down, it always trickles back up. So history tells us that.
Yeah, during our break, Sly, you brought up something I think we want to get into in a future episode.
Yeah.
You brought up the effect that Airbnbs are having in certain markets. Not ours. We don't have a lot of them.
Yeah.
But in more touristy areas like California, Arizona, Texas, Florida, places where Airbnbs... Oversaturated. People buy in for the gold rush, and now as those economic indicators are starting to drop, and our GDP growth is starting to, I'm not going to say it's dropped, but it's not
as robust as it was,
as much as it was.
Yeah,
those are and disposable income and access to savings. And one of the things that I want to look at this week too, just to put on top of some of the data you've already provided me, is at what level are we leveraged in debt as a nation too? Because I think that's a big factor as well.
You're going to be very shocked when you see those numbers. Credit card debt's at an all-time high. Car loan debt's at an all-time.
Car loan too?
Yeah, car loans.
Car loans
absolutely.
they're crazy.
Yeah, wow. The price of cars during COVID shot up astronomically, and and don't even start looking at the default rates, because you're really going to be like, what is going on?
No, there's a lot of conversation being had amongst financial experts about the possibility of there being a car bubble that bursts as well in the auto industry. Yeah.
A car bubble?
Yep.
Car bubble.
What would that look like?
I don't feel comfortable disclosing the details of them because I don't think I know enough about it to really accurately say it, but there are a lot of conversations being had about a potential bubble bursting in the auto industry.
It's going to be a good time to be a repo man, I believe. So, I mean, and this is all tied to the general economy. While the economy's good and everybody's working and, income's up, it's one thing, but when things start to slow down, that's when the cracks in the armor start to really show.
Sure.
And if people are leveraged to the hilt with credit cards, car loans, they're not going to be able to afford to go on vacation. And if you can't afford to go on vacation, hotels suffer, restaurants suffer. Obviously, the Airbnbs, hotels, you got 100 rooms. If you rent out a quarter of them, you're probably okay. But if you own 2 Airbnbs and your vacancies shoot way up,
and you're paying those mortgages.
Yeah. I think that's going to be one of the things that's going to probably, not in our area. Again, we don't have a gazillion Airbnbs. We're not oversaturated because we're not a vacation destination. But yeah, some of those areas I'm seeing.
What you talking about, Lewis?
Yeah, but no, I do see, and I've read several articles kind of indicating that there may be some problems in those areas.
Wow, that'll be interesting. I remember back in 2008 to 2011 after the crash, I went 3 years without seeing an income. It was tough.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 years without seeing an income. When you talk about the repo man, I remember sleeping in my bedroom at night. Every time I heard a truck, I would run to the window, afraid it was the repo man coming to get my car.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a tough time for a lot of brokers, unless you happen to be lucky getting a lot of foreclosure deals.
Sure.
Right.
So yeah, that was tough time. So I hope our economy is not headed towards that.
Yeah.
It's one of the saddest things you'll ever. Well, no. If you work in a hospital setting, that's probably the saddest.
Yeah.
But watching large amounts of people go through the process of losing their homes,
Horrible.
it is a very sad situation, and having to deal with that. And that kind of brings me to a point too. As we are starting to see more defaults in the housing market, I want to remind people, this is not 2008.
Right.
You have more than likely equity in your home. You can get out of that foreclosure possibly by selling it and walking away with that cash. If you let the bank take it, they take all that equity. So try not to hide yourself in a turtle shell, afraid to face the reality of your situation. There's ways out of it where you can walk away with probably a large sum of money that might even be able to put you into a situation where you might be able to buy cash on a smaller home, or a home in a different area. There's options for housing that are very inexpensive, especially if you're single. The Vacation Village has got like those kind of one bedroom and studio apartments that you could buy for like 60, 70 grand.
Right.
So if you're in a situation where you have the potential to lose your house, talk to a professional sooner than later. See what your options are. An attorney is probably going to be able to buy you some time, and a realtor is probably going to be able to get you a sale of that home that will get you out from being underwater.
Yeah, if you go into foreclosure, the bank and the lawyers are going to eat up your equity. So, like Dick said, I can't stress that enough. And the problem isn't going to go away. If you're starting to become delinquent it's not, the mortgage company's not just going to say, oh, okay, we'll forget that. It's just going to keep snowballing and adding fees and penalties. So I guess the point is just, seek professional help before it gets to that.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, but we are out of time. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the heart of our community, exploring the ins and outs of real estate and meeting the people who make Lake County truly remarkable. Remember, every property has a story, and every community...
WRLR 98.3